If you ever look at porn again, we're done. It's over. Have you ever heard that message? Well, that's the message some of the guys I've worked with hear from their wives, fiancés, or girlfriends. Today I want to talk about that message. Is it helpful or harmful for guys to hear? And is that the message that will get the betrayed partner the results they desire? Today we discuss that nuclear threat in light of a guy's recovery from porn. Welcome aboard.
Guys ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, if you're new to this podcast, I want to let you in on a couple things. Sometimes I have people who find one of these podcasts and they don't realize that I have two parallel podcasts. This one, of course, is called Finding Traction, and it's a general recovery podcast for people who are wanting to get free from porn, like most of you. I also do a parallel podcast called Pastors on Porn, which is for people in ministry, nonprofits, parachurch organizations, anyone who is in one of those sort of positions who is also struggling with unmanageable sexual behaviors. And some of the guys who aren't in that situation still find that they really enjoy those podcasts. But the reason I recorded that parallel or that separate podcast is because there are some unique issues for guys who are struggling, who are also in ministry. So if you're interested in that, you could always hop over to the other podcast as well. Interesting, each podcast has almost exactly the same number of episodes. So again, if you're not sick of the sound of my voice, you might want to check that one out as well. Once again, if you haven't been to the website, I want to encourage you to check it out. It's bandofbrothers.care. And there you will find some free resources to help you in your recovery journey. One of the things I'm most proud about is this set of worksheets that I've developed to help guys at various ages and stages to deal with some of the unique issues around their porn struggle. And you'll find that on the under the free resources tab on the website. Once again, that's bandofbrothers.care. And finally, I have just different guys who say, hey, at this point, I'm not able to join one of the groups, but I'd still like to do the 52-week video course, Finding Traction. I've got guys who are doing that in Australia, in the UK, in North America, sometimes with a buddy or two, sometimes just with one other guy. That's probably ideal. And sometimes guys go, I want to start by doing it on my own. And again, that's not ideal, but it's a starting point. You got to start somewhere. So again, if you have any questions, email me at bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. Well, today I want to unpackage this nuclear threat. There's a lot of talk about the threat of nuclear war today between Russia and Ukraine and all of that. But I want to talk about the nuclear threat between partners. And this is where your partner says, or shouts, or throws things, whatever it is, if you look at porn again, we're done. And that statement I've heard a number of guys who've been on the receiving end of that statement when they've either been coming clean or been found out by their partners. And I recognize today I am going to have to work extremely hard, or I'm going to have a whole bunch of betrayed partners extremely angry with me from this podcast. So you need to listen really carefully to everything I say before you send me an angry email. Now, first of all, I want to say something to every betrayed partner who's listening to this. When you say this, I'm done if you ever look at porn again, I think there's lots of common sense reasons for you to say that. And I say that even from a guy who's looked at porn in a married relationship. The bottom line is you've been betrayed probably over and over and over again by him looking at porn. You've also probably been lied to over and over and over again. And you're going, I'm done. I'm over this. I can't. He tells me he's over it. He's done. He's not doing it anymore. Then I find out he is. I find out he's been lying to me. So, giving it or saying a nuclear statement such as, we're done if you ever look at porn again, it's probably one way to match the intensity of the hurt feelings that you have. It seems proportional to you. Maybe you feel like, if I take a kinder, softer approach with him, he's simply going to continue to take advantage of me. He'll continue to hurt me, hurt our relationship, and hurt the family. So it makes sense in that regard. Maybe it makes sense too if you feel like he's just not getting it. I mean, this has been going on for so long, and what we've been doing as a couple is not working. And maybe this sort of nuclear threat seems as good as any to get his attention, to turn up the heat. He's not taking me seriously. Well, this will get his attention. And to add further layers to this, perhaps your story, as the betrayed partner, includes aspects where you maybe were betrayed in the past by another relationship, or there was abuse in your background or your family of origin. And this sort of nuclear threat is just your way of saying, I just don't have the resources to deal with this. It's too painful or overwhelming for me. And making that kind of threat making that kind of a statement is really the only way that I can create the necessary sense of safety for me. So I want to end by saying this. Nobody can tell you you need to stay in the relationship. You have agency over your own life. Nobody can use any sort of shoulds or oughts against you into, telling you what you can or can't do. It's up to you. What I want to do today is, as gently as possible, show you perhaps a different vantage point on looking at his actions and a possible way forward that might actually preserve your relationship and give him the best possibility of recovering. So, bear with me. First of all, I want to agree with your desire to turn up the heat. One of the lessons that I teach in the Finding Traction course is a lesson called accelerators and speed bumps to recovery. Things that either speed up or slow down your recovery. And here's the simple truth for a vast number of guys. An enabling wife is to the struggling guy's detriment. You see, if their wives don't care, if they look at porn or act out, if their wives don't care, then they as guys are often unable to find the initial catalyst to start the recovery journey. See, porn is just too hard to give up. But for guys who have a partner who takes this deadly seriously, who won't put up with it, then their approach actually helps cut through the brain fog and can help get them started. I like to say sometimes that many guys don't take porn seriously until the keys don't work in the front door anymore. In fact, I've heard the stat somewhere, and I think it's probably accurate from my working with guys. Over 80% of guys need some sort of external pressure point or pain point to jolt them out of merrily continuing on with their journey. So you could say, well, Vern, it sounds like you like the nuclear option. The next time you look at porn, we're done. And again, I like the fact that you're turning up the heat, the fact that you're not just enabling his behaviors. But in one sense, that nuclear statement actually makes the process of recovery more difficult and less likely that he will succeed in his recovery. And when you make that kind of global nuclear statement, you're actually harming, not helping, the possibility of change on his part and the possibility of preserving your relationship. Again, if that's important to you. Let me explain what I mean by that by giving you a few things that I want to compare. First of all, I want to compare his issue versus your issue. Chances are your husband has had this struggle embedded in his life for years, and years before he met you. And when he met you, despite the fact that you swept him off his feet, his struggle with porn didn't magically go away. Many guys, maybe early on in their relationship, it kind of recedes into the background. But oftentimes, within a year, it comes back. I've seen it over and over and over again. And what I'm saying is this: though it hurts you, his looking at porn isn't primarily about you. It isn't about how you look. It isn't about how much sex you have. The point of and here's the idea: if the problem isn't you, then it also bears out that you are not the solution. There's nothing you can do to make him recover unless he finds it in himself. So in one sense, that sort of pressure won't help him get better in and of itself. The second thing I want to talk about is progress versus perfection. There's a statement in recovery that is often used, and the statement is this: recovery is about progress, not perfection. What does that mean? What it means is this: whenever you are overcoming something like a long-term addictive behavior, an embedded habit, something that has developed over years and years and years, it is not as simple as one day simply deciding to stop. Just stop. Don't do it again. If we're trying to be honest, you as well probably have embedded patterns in your life that you're also trying to overcome. And it's not simply as easy as saying, today I'm not going to do this, or tomorrow I'm not doing this, or I'm never going to do this again. We all have those patterns in our lives. I think if we're honest, we would indicate that. This is just one which is an incredibly hurtful one. And what you need to do for the guy is if you're going to stop a destructive addiction like porn behaviors, or, then you need to learn over time to write over it, to replace the old habits with new, better behaviors. You need to deal with some of the lies behind it. You need to deal with the root causes. You need to deal with some of the ways that you medicate with porn. It's hard work, and it takes time, and it's not done perfectly. I've worked with now a few hundred guys, and I have yet to see someone who simply decided to stop looking at porn and never, ever looked at it again the first time. It was always some sort of dogged, consistent, intentional, moving forward, but not perfect process. So when you say the next time you look at porn, we're done, what you're saying is, I will only accept 100% perfect track record. That was the only thing that will do for me. Now, that is your prerogative, but he won't be able to do it perfectly. And if he ever slips along the way, he now knows he has a rather stark decision to face. And that will lead probably to his next decision, which will be choosing a lie or deception over the truth. See, since a guy knows that the nuclear response is on the table, if he still wants to preserve his marriage and a family, he will need to take his behaviors underground. Now, hopefully he'll still continue to work on his recovery, but he will shade the truth or lie to you to avoid tripping that wire that causes the end of the relationship. And I know that's what most women don't want. They want honesty. They need honesty. It's the dishonesty which they hate the most, but you're putting men in a place where they feel like they have no choice. You know, the nuclear statement leads to a sort of pressurized recovery that leads to another quandary, and I'm going to call that security versus insecurity. See, when men know they can't fail, they can't slip up or it's over, it creates a fear-based, pressurized recovery. And you can get short-term results with that, but it will wear out the relationship. I've had men tell me things like, I just can't live with the pressure to get it right all the time. I might as well get off the train right now because I know or I feel like at some point I'm going to screw up. And here's the irony of this whole thing. It's actually a deep security within the relationships which motivates men to change and grow. One of the reasons why I believe that I've been successful in recovery has been because a kind and compassionate wife. She doesn't put up with anything, but I have been loved and accepted as an imperfect, growing person. When I experience that kind of kindness and compassion from my wife, then I have a deep internal desire to grow into what that other person needs me to be. See, that's the way healthy marriages work. The last comparison I want to talk about is the comparison between an ally and an adversary. And this is so important. I think I'm going to take the next podcast down the line and I'm going to spend a whole podcast simply walking through the differences between being an ally and an adversary. See, presenting the nuclear option to your spouse leaves you in the posture of being an adversary, someone on the other side of the equation, someone wearing a different jersey. If there's one thing that I see in couples that successfully navigate recovery or any other major problems, it's this. They operate as allies. They operate as allies in a struggle against an outside force or threat. Again, I'm going to spend the next podcast really giving more details about this. Now, let me just stop and say this. Some of you are going, you know what? I just don't think I can do this. And you're probably right. It's kind of like in the same way where guys are just starting out in recovery, trying to deal with maybe 10, 20, 30 years of looking at porn, and they're going, I can't do this on my own. It's too hard. And I say to them, you're absolutely right. You need support. You need help. You need comrades. You need people coming around you if you're going to be successful, because you can't do it on your own. And I want to say to you, if you're a betrayed spouse, it's exactly the same thing. It's too hard. You can't do this on your own. You can't take that posture of being firm and yet also being kind and compassionate without support, without help. It is possible to be kind and compassionate, but not enabling. It is possible to be firm, but not threatening. But you're going to need help to be able to do that. So let me just say, without judgment, I hope that I have given you maybe pause for thought on how to obtain the results you're hoping for in your relationship and your family. Again, having brought up this whole thing of spouses, let me take the next podcast and I'll flesh out in more detail what being an ally actually looks like. Till next time, Vern out.